Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Dustin Prugel. IOTUNN have a new single out now with Jens Bogren as mastering engineer, and I have to say I very much like what I hear. They still have the quite raw and unperfect elements in the sound, yet are booted up to a new level of soundscape, which sounds pretty interesting. So, let's dive into this. We got IOTUNN's new one, Mistland. That is both the album and the track title. Let's dive in. Oh, I take that back. This is a single. They don't have a new album out yet, but this is their latest single. I love the triplets on the guitars versus the straight eighth quarter notes on the drums. It's a really powerful belt from our vocalist. Beautiful ride cymbal work. Consistent rhythm. But just a really nice personality to the accent pattern. So we kicked the track off with the chorus then. Really gorgeous. There's that cymbal work again. using the same pitch in the vocals and the guitar to bring in the solo section. Sorry, duet. Creating a really nice somber moment with the guitars here. Bringing all the intensity down for just a moment. Really gonna like this if they've bookended the guitar solo with these two guitar duet sections. It would be a really great symmetrical way to create this bridge. I think those growls were layered too. I don't hear it in this part specifically, but there's so much more happening too. If there's like a quieter, lower, airier kind of growl against this cry. Bringing in this wider atmosphere and melody writing in the guitars. That volume's just static. It isn't moving at all. Oh, there it goes, a little bit. Oh, I like the new riff over here. Those offbeat accents give it a really nice energy. And it shifts sides. I mean, the fade out is very mist-like, like a fog rolling out. But I will say that the transition into that final foundational tone there at the end, it was a very rough transition. All the song has this really nice fluidity from section to section, which is it's a double-edged sword, and we'll get to that in a second. But the song does have this fluid momentum throughout it, and it's very strange then to not have an ending, for it just to be abrupt into this very airy low pitch to fade out. And like I said, it fits the idea of a Mistland, right? For a mist to be rolling in or rolling out. But I'm not too sold on the little transition into it. Maybe even just a little guitar riff. And you hit, like, the guitar plays the same note, but maybe an octave higher than that low airy pitch, and then the guitar fades out and you're left with just the airiness, and then you fade that out too. Like, even something like that would have worked. Just a little two beat idea to move us into it. And it's not like they didn't do this earlier anyways. The transition from the second chorus into the first duet in the bridge was the same concept of the vocalist rising in pitch until he hits the same pitch that the guitar starts the next idea on, and you get this really nice layered texture idea where they're both playing the exact same note, same octave, and then the vocals back off and you're left with just the guitar. And so you do have this little passing of the baton going on there. So, I mean, the abrupt change is distinct and it calls attention to itself, and maybe there's a purpose for that too that I'm just not privy to on a first listen. You know, maybe that makes sense when I read into the track or after we hit the lyrics or on subsequent listens. Um, but I mean, it draws so much attention to itself. It is a very unique point of the track as far as transition and structure go, that it's impossible for me not to have noticed it. And so it's either very intentional or it's a blemish. I don't really think that there's a middle ground there. Now, I had mentioned that the fluidity of the track was a double edged sword, and you're gonna be like, Bryan, you always talk about fluidity as this positive thing. You think all the music should have it. And like, yeah, I do really enjoy my music that I listen to move ideas smoothly. But here it actually has an interesting component to it. If we take just our opening 4 minutes, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, right before we get into the bridge, and we sort of analyze all this, it blurs together for me. The riffs are different, sure. The vocal melodies are technically different. The drum patterns are different-ish, but it's all very similar. The instruments tend to have the same rolls in the same octave. The drum patterns really only change in feel. They're either faster at a double time feel or slower at a half time feel. If you look at the groove itself, it's fairly similar throughout all of it. Even the melodies, the vocal melody, as much as I love the vocal work in these opening 4 minutes, it's all very samey. And so without having a sharp distinction between any of these moments, it all sorts of just blurs together until it's just like the opening. And it's hard for me to think about any of the aspects individually, which also means subsequently I don't get a strong element of hook throughout here. In fact, if you want me to mention one thing that I clearly remember in detail about these opening 3 sections, it's the ride cymbal idea that comes in on the second half of the chorus. It's the one thing that stands out as different or unique among the 3 sections. Everything else just sort of becomes one idea, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it, at least for me, hampers memorability. Whereas with some tracks, The sections are so distinct, even 40 minutes into an analysis, I'm still able to remember and accurately recall details and the pacing of the song and the structure of it. Here, the opening 4 minutes, I have a hard time remembering the details of. I remember the epic feeling. I remember I remember there were cool guitar riffs. I remember the drums bounce back and forth between a slower snare heavy beat and a faster bass kick heavy beat. But beyond that, it all sort of just is. It really isn't until the bridge when I begin to have some more distinct thoughts. The beautiful, serene, down tempo, and sort of rooted guitars duets, bringing the energy and intensity back up for a bit of the shredding in the solo and coming back down and revisiting that duet again. After this, we had a big change with the growls. We introduced some of the older guitar riffs. I think the drum pattern was what we had in the verse, but this time we're growling over it. That's different. These sections had a bit more unique components to them where the smoothness of the transition doesn't need to, or doesn't impact the distinction of the sections themselves. So in my mind, I kind of have the opening half and then the bridge, and then the growling section, and then our final chorus. And like the end of the song is more detailed for me, which is typical. Most people tend to remember the beginning and ending of lists, and the middle kind of gets blurry. But I don't really remember. Well, also recency bias. You remember the things most recent to you most clear, which makes sense for the end. But usually I'm pretty good about remembering a 9 minute song, especially one with so much repetition in it. Like I said, it kind of hurts that initial memorability. I think it might diminish on multiple listens, where you begin to remember more details, but it just isn't a very memorable start for a first time listen. And I think for a single, first time listens are really important. But I suppose that looks more at it as a marketing element and less of a work of art. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. Whatever you value, I suppose, in art. Um, but I do think as a single, coming off of not having released music in, what was that, 3 years? 2 years. Access All Worlds came out in 2021. Well, and they did have the acoustic rendition of, oh, it was like an acoustic melody. It's 16 minutes. Anyways, that came out last year. So it's not like they've been completely devoid of music, but for some people, this may be their first thing that they hear. Brand new single from this band, they hit play, and halfway into the track, they're like, I don't even really know what I listened to. That's not usually a good place for a single. But on the other hand, like I said, the fluidity is phenomenal. I absolutely love the way every idea moves into one another. I think the sections themselves could just use a little bit more identity to them. But I think that's the only negative thing I had to say. Everything else is positive. The solo was very shreddy, very, very noodly, but it was bookended by these really nice, melodically driven, well paced explorations of space. We have these notes played and they kind of hold them and allow the notes to really resonate. And it's done with the duet, so we have the nice harmonies going on here too, and that bookends it. So instead of the solo just being all power all the time, we actually have this nice bell curve going on where we ramp up the intensity, hit the peak at the top, and then bring the intensity back down in a smooth way, where the bridge works exceptionally well as a whole, and that is really great writing. The entire epicness of the beginning was phenomenal. I love the way that the guitars came in with their power. They just jump in, they throw down some riffs. It's got a nice groove to it. The drums come in with their backbeat snare, I think it was. I think the bass was just doing what everyone else was. I tried to listen for it a couple times and couldn't really hear it, just a general bass presence on the lower end. So I'm going to wager that they were just kind of playing the same rhythms the guitar were, and the guitar were typically following the bass kicks, so it's just sort of this stack of sound that the bass sat on the bottom of. It makes it a little more difficult for me to pick out. But there's nothing that sounds bad about this opening. It all sounds so good. Um, and then, of course, we get to the chorus and we get those really strong belts from the vocals. The guitars begin to utilize a little bit more melody rather than riff writing, and we get a little bit of counterpoint. The ride cymbal comes in, and it is just, I love that idea right there. So much good energy. Towards the end, we have that really cool riff I pointed out that started on the right side, and after 8 bars, shifted over to the left. And it had these pedal notes on the downbeat and accented new notes on the offbeat, creating this really fun, light galloping kind of thing going on. Just a really cool idea that played well against the rhythms of the drum. The growling was in this place too, and I thought it was a neat little idea. There's kind of a folk metal element to a lot of this, and I kind of figured that he was just going to have this, you know, bright, bombastic voice the whole time. Really great vibrato, great size, control, width, just a really fantastic singing voice. And then, I've said this in the past, I don't know why I underestimate metal vocalists. Maybe it's just because so many growlers only growl, whether they can sing or not. That's sort of, well, no, that would be the reverse. I would be surprised if a growler ended up singing. Yeah, I don't know why. I just hear somebody with a great voice like this, and I just don't expect them to growl, even after all these years of hearing people who have beautiful voices and the gnarliest harshes, and it's still something that surprises me. But yeah, anyways, when the growl comes in, very nice surprise. Adds in some punch and intensity and opens up, more importantly, the upper area for the guitars to come in and play some melody lines over the harsh vocals, which I thought was a really nice way to open that up and allow the guitars to showcase a little bit in that realm, since they have the entire bridge to do it, and they just kind of feel constrained anytime the vocals are in because they don't really play too much with counterpoint, dual melody lines, anything like that. So it gave the vocals an opportunity to contribute once again to the melodic element in the track. I mean, overall, it's just a solid folk metal song. I don't even know if it's technically classified as folk metal. I can kind of see a light death metal side to it. But those clean vocals are very folky. Power metal, maybe? Is that where this would be? Anyways, I think every moment of this is just really solid. And speaking of it, they got a brand new engineer. I really love the production on this. I know we checked out Access All World, something off of it previously. Maybe it was the title track? Tower of Cosmic Nihility sounds familiar too. But I don't have a sound, like a sonic profile tied to them. But I really love the production of this. The instruments are very clearly placed. The bass, I think, again, I don't know if I would necessarily ask for a kick up in the bass just because they're at the bottom of a very big stack. But I guess the bass presence is felt. It is there. But anyways, everything is clearly placed. I love the two guitars out to the side in their placement. They're hit a hair bit farther away than I would traditionally expect them to be, but I think it works very well here. I'm not sure why. I wish I could explain some of the engineering things the way I do composition things. It's just not an area I have a lot of expertise in, but I'm getting better at. But it sounds really good here. It creates a spaciousness that I think the song envelops. It really works within and captures. And it creates a spot in the middle for me, if that makes any sense. A lot of metal feels like it's right here around my head, especially, with headphones on. I think in speakers it's fine, but whenever I put the headphones on, it just feels like the band is playing right around me. It's a very claustrophobic sound for a lot of metal, and even metal adjacent stuff. Post-hardcore does this a lot. Metalcore, new metal, not even just your traditional metal stuff, just a lot of these more aggressive sounds tend to be really in your face. And so having a little bit of distance, I think, allows me to feel like I have a space here at this concert, at this performance. But it interestingly doesn't create space between the instruments. The guitars don't feel that far away from each other. They don't feel like they're distanced from the band in any way, from, the drums and the vocals and the bass that are center channel. It's just a really nice middle ground, and I kind of hope more bands hear this and like this, and it becomes the trend, because I like this a lot more than the hyper compressed production. And the guitars, the vocals, the drums, everything just sounds crisp. There's a real strong clarity to this that absolutely appeals to my production tastes. So I might have to give a listen to something off of Access All Worlds real quick. Actually, I will. While I'm pulling up the lyrics, I'll refresh my memory on that, and kind of compare it to their old production. So let me do that real quick. So real quick, I totally forgot that they're not IOTUNN, they're IOTUNN, or IOTUNN. I think the T is more heavily emphasized than my southern drawl typically wants. IOTUNN. On the side of sound, I really like this new sound. I listened to just a couple of minutes from Access All Worlds, the title track of the first album, and it has that hyper compressed sound to it. It's very close to my face. On the flip side, though, I just went to a random spot and I heard the bass doing something totally different than the rest of the band, quite present. So, I might have to listen to Mistland again and specifically listen for the bass through the entire, was it 9 minutes worth of music, and see what's going on there, because that bass work was awesome and the production on it and its presence in the track was awesome. And I think I'd rather have that more compressed sound if I could hear the bass. But that might just be something I missed on this listen. As for the lyrics, this song is about a ritual, possibly. Well, I mean, it is, because I got that directly from the vocalist, but I don't really feel the concept of the ritual spoken plainly in the lyrics themselves. But there is an element of change that our narrator runs away from initially. There is fear and pain that they tie to this change, but by the end of it, it seems that they're ready to accept it. At one point in the track, I think it really encapsulates this entire concept. He says, I should fly away from the change, feel the stars from afar. Different waves bring new states, a chance to be realized. Almost as if at odds with himself, feeling, I should run away from this. Change is not good. I don't know what happens on the other side, but he says, there is a different way to experience life if I do this. I might be fully realized through that. And that is really the heart of this entire track, it feels like. A way to be more than what you are. It says another sense of self is imminent, another plague of hungry minds. We put aside the worth of I, the truth inside, the blazing fire of a dream, and forget what it used to mean. It's been so long that we've been stuck in our ways right now that we forgot what it was to be before. And thus we also forget what it means to be next. The only thing that makes sense is what we are, and that means any change is going to be met with fear and resistance, but that doesn't mean that any change is bad. Now, in particular, it says, I think this comes from the singer, the theme of the song revolves around risking relationships to break free of the old way and embrace new ideas. It feeds into the general story and concept of the upcoming album, which deals with ancient peoples becoming aware of a ritual that can release them from their earthly form and allow them to seek new astral and spiritual horizons. I don't necessarily know that the music evokes that, but there is an epic, larger than lifeness to it that I think certainly encapsulates the idea of a more fulfilling spiritual side of existence. I do think that the end of the track, at least the back half, does lean more into a little bit of the musical storytelling of exploring these themes, the ebb and flow of the bridge, the increased intensity of the growling section, the reprise of our chorus with the extra weight on it, the extra instrumentation, creating the atmospheric stuff, and eventually even that hard end, which seems to suggest an end of something. Going at the end, the final lines that are said, I could choose to face the end alone. You could choose to let me go. I will try to meet your claim, though you would not do the same, my kin. There is definitely an element where the relationship between this person and their kin is separated. They're no longer on the same path. And maybe the hard end is to represent that. The music just abruptly ending into this lack of resolution. Or maybe that's supposed to represent our character completing the ritual and becoming spiritual. I don't know. I do think that generally everything works together well, even if I don't see a strong connection between the music and the lyrics at all times, but they are exploring similar themes throughout, and I can appreciate that. Those are my thoughts on Jotunn's Mistland. Let me know what you thought of this one. In the comment section, give me your opinions, perspectives, if you enjoyed it, if there's anything you noticed that I didn't. Put all that stuff down there. Above the comment section in the description box is a link for it, Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. That wraps it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. As usual, we'll have our final 2 experimental music tracks. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.